On this episode of Explore the IRL, my guest is Virginia Barker, Director, Natural Resources Management for Brevard County. So, Virginia, welcome to Explore the IRL. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Virginia Barker. I'm the county's Director of Natural Resources. I've been with the county since 1997. And before that, I worked for Monroe County on the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary Plan.
And what does the Natural Resources Director do?
The Natural Resources Office for the county has a number of different programs. So we do environmental permitting and code enforcement. We do underground storage tank, hazardous waste cleanup, and inspections actually in 6 counties along the entire lagoon now through a contract with the state. We have a stormwater program, and now we have the Save Our Indian River Lagoon program. We also have beaches, boating, and waterways.
So talk a little bit about your role and the Save Our Indian River Lagoon funding and that work.
Yeah, so in 2016, following an enormous fish kill, the community had really had too much of seeing the lagoon continue to decline. And so the idea was put on the ballot to pass a 0.5-cent sales tax to generate funding to clean up the lagoon, to stop the excess pollution going into the lagoon and clean out the excess pollution that's already accumulated in the lagoon and restore the filter feeders. And so that tax was approved by the voters in every voting precinct in the whole county back in 2016. So collection started in 2017. It's a 10-year tax, so it runs through the end of 2026. So we're in year 8 now. We've completed 95 projects. We have 27 under construction right now and another, almost 70 in the pipeline in design and permitting.
And so can you discuss what some of those projects are?
Right. So we start with the ones that reduce the amount of pollution going into the lagoon. So it's a lot of wastewater and stormwater projects. So whether that's upgrading wastewater treatment plants so that the reclaimed water that's used for irrigation contains fewer nutrients. So we're not just, pouring excess nutrients into the ground and onto the sidewalks. It includes septic to sewer. So converting people from septic tanks to sewer, upgrading septic tanks that are too far from sewer service, getting them onto advanced septic that is, it still allows some pollution to get into the groundwater that migrates to the lagoon, but it cuts it in half. And then stormwater treatment. So improving the treatment of stormwater before it makes it to the lagoon.
And why were those selected, say, versus other types of things you might want to do?
Great question. So we looked at all of the known and potential sources to the lagoon, and we did a literature review. We reviewed studies that were out there and estimated the amount of pollution from each source, right, to identify the major sources. Then we looked at, what kind of projects can you do? What kind of treatments can you do to address those sources, and how much do they cost? So then we had a benefit and a cost for each project, and we came up with, a cost benefit ratio. And we sort of, prioritize projects from top to bottom, from what's going to get us the biggest bang to the buck, all the way down to the least cost-effective project. And we just started at the top of the list, right? The best projects went into the plan for how to spend the 0.5-cent sales tax. Every year, we re-review that information. We look at new information, new technologies, new projects, new opportunities. We ask the community to provide project ideas, and the Citizen Oversight Committee works with staff to review all those projects. And so new projects that are better than projects that are already in the plan, they go in, and the least most cost-effective project comes out of the plan to free up the money to fund the new project. So we're continuously improving to try to get, the best bang for the buck as soon as possible to reduce or remove pollution.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because originally there was a certain ratio of how much was going to be spent on water flowing in versus pulling muck out and things. And I think that's switched now to an extent.
Yes, it has switched, not because of cost effectiveness, but because of sort of the human outcry of disgust about wastewater going into the lagoon, right? It's just icky, and people didn't want to tolerate it.
Right. So you responded to the community saying, hey, we think a little more focus here.
The county commission directed the oversight committee to, shift some funding.
And at the same time, there's still a fair amount of muck removal going on, correct?
Right. There is still, yes, there's still about 40%, just under 40% of the funding is going to muck removal instead of 2/3.
Uh-huh. And what are some of the other perhaps smaller projects you're working on that aren't associated with these big kind of infrastructure things?
Well, we also are restoring the natural filter feeders in the lagoon. And our primary partner in that is Brevard Zoo, working with homeowners, working with volunteers to build oyster reefs, working with the University of Florida and Blair Wiggins on their super clam restoration project, and then working with the National Estuary Program and Fish and Wildlife on seagrass restoration. So we have those projects as well. And then some of our other smaller projects are the individual homeowner projects, either connecting to a sewer line that's nearby or upgrading their septic tank.
Uh-huh. And how big is the team that works with you?
We are up to 13 now. So we started with 5, and as more and more projects got up and going, we needed more people to manage them.
Obviously, so still relatively small, but as you talked about, you have Brevard Zoo. There are literally thousands of volunteers out there helping, aren't there?
There are. We've had over 1,700 individual homeowners along the lagoon help raise baby oysters to, juvenile or young adult size that are more durable to predators when you stick them out there on reefs. We partner with the cities, right? This tax is collected countywide. And so we also ask the cities for their projects, and their staffs are also helping to implement projects throughout the county.
And you essentially fill in for projects that others don't necessarily do or can't do. Is that how it sort of works?
Yes. So we also looked at, what are the mandates for projects that need to happen anyway? What are the projects that potentially have other funding sources, whether it's a utility rate or a stormwater fee? And so we don't invest as heavily in those types of projects that already have a potential funding stream, whereas muck removal has no other funding opportunity.
One of the other things I noticed that I learned that was fascinating is you actually use these funds to draw in matching funds and other things to do projects, and so you're actually doing more.
Yes. It takes money to make money, but right. So once we have this skin in the game, right, we can apply for state funding. We can apply for federal funding. And so far, we've been able to more than double the contributions of the local residents by leveraging tourist dollars and leveraging state and federal grants.
Wow, that's fantastic. And so we sort of talked about what you do. What are you seeing? Where are we with the lagoon now?
Right. So for a number of years after the tax passed, the seagrass continued to decline because the water quality was still bad, right? Not good enough to support seagrasses. And so it took a number of years for us to implement enough projects to reduce the amount of pollution in the lagoon enough that there are some areas of the lagoon clear enough, clean enough to support seagrass recovery. And so we're beginning to see that for, the last 2 years now, we've begun to see seagrass rebounding in the areas where there's the least amount of pollution. And the idea is just, continue to reduce pollution and expand that footprint of where seagrass can rebound. And of course, where the seagrasses are rebounding, we're seeing fish populations and the birds and, all the other wildlife return.
The other thing that I noticed and learned was obviously this is a really big series of waterways. And so there are unique problems or issues depending on where within the Indian River Lagoon you are. And how is that looked at?
Yeah, so the state has divided the lagoon up into subsections, and the Water Management District has even smaller sections sort of looking between causeways that sort of function to compartmentalize the water in this little segment. And so part of the half cent sales tax plan is we looked at those segments to make sure that the diversity of projects was dispersed in a way to clean up every segment an equal amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
So raise the bar in all segments.
How do you see where we're at today from your own perspective and your sort of larger overview?
Well, it's really encouraging to see how quickly the lagoon ecosystem can recover when we give it some breathing room. And so, it just took one really clear water year to start turning things around. And so hopefully we've sort of passed a critical threshold where things can continue to recover and will recover faster and faster each year. Although there can certainly be setbacks. If we have a bad storm year, then we expect to see some setbacks. But it is really encouraging to see the support that we have from the community and the recovery ability, the resilience of the ecosystem to recover when we don't impact it with too much pollution.
So given where we're at, is this a stay the course kind of period now, or there are new areas we need to begin to look at and focus on?
I think that everything that we are doing is working. And so there's no reason not to stay the course on those projects, on those types of projects, unless something better comes along, right? And so we're constantly looking at new technologies and testing new technologies and, to try to find those even better solutions. And so, as those come along, we will embrace those. But otherwise, the projects that we're doing are working.
Can you discuss a little bit about how you work with the Citizens Oversight Committee and that relationship?
Yeah, so the county staff are staff to the Citizens Oversight Committee. So the Citizens Oversight Committee is made up of 14 citizens who volunteer for this duty, right? They meet monthly. They review how projects are going. And we collect data to demonstrate, to document the performance of our projects. They look at that data to see, are these projects working? How much do they cost? Are they cost effective? What are these new project opportunities and new technologies? Do we think they're better or not? And so they go through that process all year long, and it culminates in November with a project list, and they recommend a project list to staff. We incorporate that into the plan and again go through that balancing act to make sure that when we're putting this project in, the project that's coming out to free up dollars for that is coming out of the same segment of the lagoon, right? So every year we're redoing that balancing act to the best of our ability.
And then that goes to the county commissioners?
That goes to the county. Once we have a full plan, a revised plan approved by or recommended by the Citizen Oversight Committee, we take that to the county commission. And in most years, they've approved it as recommended. A couple times they've asked for the committee to consider some changes.
What one word would you use to describe the Indian River Lagoon?
To me, the Indian River Lagoon is just wondrous. Every day, every experience is a little different. Right now, we see these schools of bait fish, right? You'll see where the water is just a little darker and a few more ripples, and then all of a sudden it'll just flash white as they all leap. And there's just so many natural phenomena like that happen on the lagoon every day. to me, it's just wondrous.
What's your favorite place on the Indian River Lagoon?
One of my favorite places are the little sandbars that extend off the Spoil Islands, where it's sort of ankle deep water. And I like to take my dogs out there and just run and run and run in the ankle deep water.
And what's your favorite thing to do on the Indian River Lagoon?
I guess sort of, late afternoon when the sun is low on the horizon and there's a breeze blowing. It's just rejuvenative. So it doesn't matter whether it's a paddleboard or a kayak or a boat or walking the shoreline, right? It's just that time of day and on this waterway that's so much bigger than us and so much more powerful than us that it's rejuvenating.
What can the citizens who live in this beautiful area do to help out?
Right. So each household is responsible for about 10 pounds of excess nitrogen loading pollution going to the lagoon. And so the decisions that we're making in our households and our lives and our businesses every day impact whether, we're contributing that pollution. And so how we take care of our yard and how we maintain our car and how we maintain our septic system, all those decisions, picking up our pet waste, impact whether we're a part of the problem or a part of the solution. And so people who want to be a part of the solution can Google Lagoon Loyal, and there's a whole list of tips and tricks and things that you can do to lower your footprint of pollution on the lagoon and be a part of the solution.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Explore the IRL featuring Virginia Barker, Director, Natural Resources Management for Brevard County. For more information on the department's work, please go to www.brevardfl.gov/natural resources. And if you'd like more information on the One Lagoon program, go to onelagoon.org. For Explore the IRL, our local treasure, this is Fred Goldstein. Thanks for listening.